Warning. This podcast contains spoilers and explicit language. Listener discretion is advised.
Scaredy Cat, have a scary chat. Scaredy Cat with Rob and Ash.
Welcome back to Scaredy Cat. I'm Robbie.
And I'm Ash.
And this is the podcast where one person who likes horror films
And someone else who just really doesn't.
watch, recap, and review horror films. We're not releasing this one on Monday
Because it's Memorial Day.
Yes, and we've been very busy.
Everybody needs a break. It's been a fucking insane week.
Yeah. So you'll be hearing this one on Tuesday?
Tuesday. How's your arm? Rob's got a little tendonitis.
Way to splay it out there for everybody. I'm doing okay.
Good. I'm glad.
Do you want to know what the film is this week?
No, I don't.
At all? You just want to go in blind?
No, sure. Tell me what it is.
All right. The movie, Raw.
Okay.
R-A-W, Raw, from 2016.
Okay.
What do you think it's about?
I think this movie is an expose of the factory farm industry. This is about cows being treated like bad, really bad. And then there's one cow who's like, fuck this, and starts like becoming sentient and like becomes a ninja. No, that's not right. Gets really good at wielding a butcher knife. And so when they come to collect all of the cattle in his particular herd, to take them to slaughter in really inhumane ways after they've been treated really inhumanely for their entire lives, he hops up on two of his little cow feet, and with the other two little cow feet, he's like, fuck you, and he slaughters all of the people, all of the cattle workers, and he just lays them out, all of them. And then they put them onto the truck to be taken to the processing plant, and those people get processed, and then the people at home who are eating their disgusting steaks and hamburgers find out that they're actually eating their friends and neighbors.
Their
Raw,
friends and,
2016.
So they sent it out to the people who live directly next door to the butchers? Do you think the cows delivered it?
No. They put them on the truck to go to the processing plant, and at the processing plant, they don't give a shit what they're processing. They just throwing stuff in the grinder.
I'm sure that's exactly how processing plant works.
That's exactly how it works. Listen, my dad worked at a meat processing plant for a long time, and there was more than one incident where a person fell into a grinder.
Yes, but they didn't send that to the distributor.
That's true. They actually shut down the plant for a good solid week to make sure there were no human pieces in your meat. But they could be the exception, not the rule.
By the way, terrible way to go in a meat grinder.
Well, my dad told me this story when I was a kid about, because my dad worked third shift. So there was a guy who was cleaning this meat grinder, and the meat grinder was like a story and a half tall. These things were fucking huge. They were like these giant stainless steel bowls that had these car-sized blades inside of them. So this guy was hosing out the inside of the meat grinder, which is normal. That's what you do. That's how you clean it. But there's a catwalk that goes all the way around the top of the grinder. And you're supposed to stay on the outside of the gated off thing. So you're supposed to stay on the catwalk. You're not supposed to step over the rail at any point. The guy, there was like a little piece of something stuck under the blade, and he turned it on so that he could hose that part of it down. And while it was on, he was like, well, I can't get to it. If I just step over this guardrail that's supposed to keep me safe, I can definitely get it. So in rubber boots, he steps over the guardrail onto this stainless steel bowl that's vibrating because it's turned on, and it's wet because he's hosing it down, and he slips, and he goes into the meat grinder. They called in 5 men that worked there who had all been to prison for various murdery things to help them clean this up. They had to call in the FDA, they had to call in OSHA, like it was this huge deal. My dad still talks about it like 25 years later, and he said it was the most horrifying thing he had ever seen in his entire life. The only part of the dude that they found that was recognizable was his ear, and it was like on the other side of the plant. Super disgusting. So disgusting.
Now, alternatively, what do you do if you're the guy who falls in and you go completely through the thing and you like look up and you're on the conveyor belt? You're like, what just happened? How did I get through that?
I think you fucking thank your lucky stars and you become like a Hindu or whatever
Right.
because someone was fucking protecting
Never
your
do
ass.
anybody any harm ever again.
I think the air starts to smell sweeter. I think the grass looks greener. I think the birds' songs are 10 times more pleasant. I think your life gets a lot better after that.
Well, I've worked in factories, and we have what's called Lockout Tagout. Lockout Tagout is a system where you have a lock, a literal lock, that you put on the control panel for any machinery you're going to work on that will keep anybody from turning it on. So before you do any work inside of a machine, you have to go and turn off the machine and lock it out, and then you keep that key with you. That's the Lockout Tagout. And then you have that key on you until you get back and unlock the key and the lock.
Who do you tag?
Whoever you're playing tag with.
Okay.
That's a different thing.
Okay.
So you lock it, you take the tag with you, and then when you're back, you unlock it, and that way there's nobody going to come along behind you and accidentally turn it on while you're inside of it.
Makes sense.
You're not going to have it spinning while you're in there working on it. Like, that is just...
Common sense, yeah. A lot of stuff.
That's some 90s dumb right there. And we figured out, hey, we can keep you safe if we just keep it powered off and a lock on it.
Didn't you get your arm stuck on a machine one time?
I was 90s dumb couple of times. I've had all kinds of injuries. Some of the injuries happened because a lock mechanism failed, and some of them happened because I wanted to save some time and we had a bad policy. We'll just say that. So anyway, Raw,
Yes.
2016. It is not about a butchery.
That's disappointing. I feel like, as a newly minted vegetarian, I feel like that's a movie I would pay to see.
But funny that you'd say that, because you told a joke yesterday about a vegetarian.
Oh, can I tell it again?
Yes, I would like you to.
How do you know if someone is a vegetarian?
How?
They'll tell you at least 60 times.
And it's true.
It's true.
Mostly because when you go somewhere and you are looking at a menu, you have to ask for the vegetarian
It's
options.
hard.
You have to ask them for no meat.
Robert got tacos yesterday and asked the waitress if he could have them with no meat. And she was like, okay.
Yeah, so
She was very confused.
it is true that you have to tell people you're a vegetarian over and over again, but mostly just because you're required to make sure that people understand you don't want meat.
I mean, that's true. But then there's also like, there's a point at which it's like, okay, you can order without being like, and no meat. You know what I mean? You can be like, oh, I'll just take the cheese enchiladas. And you don't have to be like, but no meat, because I'm a vegetarian.
Because, hey, I'm a vegetarian.
Like, I ordered a black bean burger, and it was like, okay, I can have a black bean burger. It wasn't like, can I have a black bean burger with no meat, please? Because I'm a vegetarian. You don't have to be obnoxious about it. That's all I'm saying.
But you also don't have to not be.
I mean, yes, you're free to be as obnoxious as you
Live
like.
your life is what I say.
Sure, that is what you always say. All the time, constantly.
That's the setup for this film.
'Kay.
I'm not going to tell you any more about it, but I'll tell you that's...
Okay, so we're going to watch the movie now.
All right, we'll watch
And what's
it.
fun is we have campers in our
Okay,
backyard.
So it's Memorial Day weekend, and we set up a tent in the backyard. We've been working in the backyard for the last couple days, getting like a gazebo set up and getting all our lights and everything. And then I also set up a tent today because our daughter is having a friend over. And at the same time, we got a new TV because I found a TV.
In the
and
trash.
I fixed the TV, and now we have a giant 52-inch TV.
Which is too big for this room.
It's huge.
It's too big.
But that being said, we cannot watch the movie on the giant TV because we have campers in the backyard who may be mortified if they see the movie. So we're going to watch it on a little tiny screen in the living room
Because
in front
we're
of the giant
good parents.
TV. In front of the giant TV. All right, we'll be back.
Or we won't.
So that was Raw from 2016. Just shot in the dark. What'd you think?
That was fucking disgusting.
It wasn't that gross.
It was so nasty.
It was like a
Robert. She pulled a mile-long clump of hair out of her throat.
Okay.
At that point, I am out. I am done. I can watch people get eaten. I can watch people have their heads blown off. I can watch dogs and babies die. But fucking hair in your mouth, no thank you.
I'm sorry, as somebody who has emptied our drain many times,
Why do you think there's so much hair in the drain? Because I cannot remove it. Because it's too gross.
well, I understand how it gets in the drain. I don't understand how it gets on the ceiling, how it gets on the walls.
Let me tell you how it gets on the walls, okay?
Okay.
Because the longer my hair gets, the more it comes out of my head. It just
Right.
happens. It's a biological fact. It happens to everyone.
It's in textbooks.
It probably is. So, because I do not want it to go down the drain, I just put it on the wall when it comes out of my head.
Which is gross.
But I've stopped doing it because you said stop, so I
that
stopped.
was super gross. But no, that scene where she's like barfing up hair
Oh, we can't even talk about it.
just reminds me
We
of
can't even talk
pulling
about it.
clumps of your hair out of the
But out of your mouth?
when we lived at our last house, when we first moved in,
Mm-hmm.
the drains were slow. I reached in those goddamn things with my bare hands
Oh.
and pulled out clumps of hair that was foreign to us.
You're a good man. I'm done at that point.
So what I was gonna say is, think about hot sauce. You know, like level of hot in hot sauce. You got like mild, you've got like medium, you've got super hot, and you've got like burn your ass.
Sure.
So this movie, I was led to believe was gonna be a burn your ass as far as like how gross it was. It was really more of a medium. It was
Yeah.
almost a schmedium, really.
I think it had like William Castle levels of hype.
Yeah.
And then you watched it with that anticipation. Had you watched it with no sort of precursor about how gross it was going to be, would you have liked it more?
I'm not saying I didn't like it. See, that's a different thing. Just because I didn't think it was super gross doesn't mean that I didn't enjoy the film.
Okay, so let's get into the film.
Okay.
So this was a French horror film.
It was a French-Belgian co-production. Jumping off the bat, let's get in our main cast.
Okay, first,
There's about 5 people that are worth noting. The parents, who you meet first.
and then we have Justine,
Yes, Justine is played by. Here we go.
French
These, by the way,
names.
French names.
You took French in high school.
You
That's where we met.
We were in that class together.
I didn't pay attention.
Garras Merrier.
Interesting, okay.
Mm-hmm.
She's our main character.
Yes. Who looks a lot like Lord, which got to me after a
She
while.
doesn't look like Lord
Looks
at all.
so much like Lord.
She doesn't have the hair.
And there's a lot of scenes where it just looks like a Lord music video.
I mean, I get that, but like this girl does not look like Lord at all. I don't think. I think maybe you've not seen Lord in a while.
Go ahead, keep going.
Next we have her sister Alex,
Ella Rumpf.
and then we have Justine's roommate Adrian.
Rabat Naufala.
And Adrian looks really familiar.
Not really.
I don't know why.
He's got that.
I'm not somebody that I've seen in a movie. He looks like someone that I know in real life.
Well, I don't know
But I
people you know in
can't-
real life.
You don't?
No.
See,
not all of them.
I always assume that you know everything that is in my brain. And so
Right.
sometimes it gets me into trouble because you don't really know what I'm talking about and then blah, blah, blah. So Anyways, he looks like somebody I know. I think
Right.
somebody that we knew from Turkey.
But that's the main three people that we follow through the majority of the film.
Justine, Alex, and Adrian.
The other two players that are worth noting are the mom and the dad, who I did not get their names, but they're at the beginning and they're at the end.
Yes.
And in the middle.
They're at the beginning, the middle,
And the end. They're at each act. And this movie, let's get into production cards, was a joint effort by a lot of fucking people.
But mainly released by Universal.
Yeah, Universal was in there. Petite Film was the French production house that produced it.
There were like 30 different.
Yep, co-produced by Rouge International and Fracas Productions, and then a whole slew of extra names that I just did not take the time to write down. It was
Rude.
distributed in the U.S. by Focus World, which Focus I always remember for Unleashed.
Unleashed.
The the Jet Li movie, where he's like, got the collar and it keeps him from killing everybody. And then
I
they
do
take the
remember
collar
that
off.
now.
That's the only movie I ever remember from Focus.
Favorite Kung Fu movie?
Drunken Master.
Oh, fuck, that's mine. We can't have the same
Actually,
one.
no, I'll change it. I'm gonna say Fist of Legend
Okay.
with Jet Li.
Drunken Master is my favorite. We can't have the same favorite. That's weird. That's like when you go to a restaurant and you order the same thing.
This movie's rated R.
Dun dun dun.
And it had one of the best reasons for a rated R movie that I've ever seen.
Yeah, you actually stopped it. And
Yeah, so I could write
this
this down. So it's restricted for aberrant behavior, bloody and grisly images, strong sexuality, nudity, language and drug use, / partying.
Now, whenever you said aberrant, I corrected you and said, no, I think
Abhorrent.
that's abhorrent.
Nope, it's aberrant.
And you were like, no, it's a different word. And then we looked it up.
Right.
And aberrant,
It means different behavior, like strange.
and for selfish reasons, for something that doesn't benefit anyone but yourself.
Right.
Usually it pertains to sexual acts, but in this movie, not so much.
So that sent me on an expedition to find the aberrant behavior they were referring to in this entire film, and I think I found it.
Okay.
We'll get into that. So, main gist of the story is this family of vegetarians. The youngest daughter is going to school. She wants to be a vet.
She's going to vet school. And the way they do college in France is different than how we do college in the United States. I don't know how it works, but I know that
It's a bold statement for somebody who
but
doesn't
I know
really
that
know.
it's not the same. I know that it's not the same. I don't know. But anyway, so she's going to a college that is just for veterinarians.
But
That's all they do.
Her entire family went there.
Yes, her mother and father are both veterinarians, and her older sister Alex is also
there.
already at the college.
She's been there for a year.
She's second year, yeah.
Yeah.
We're led to believe that Justine is like this super smart, hotshot student. And
From one scene, really.
yeah.
It's really just the one scene where the professor's like, "You're a hot shot." She doesn't know
No,
what you're
he
doing.
said she turns in her tests and he says, "Let's see if you
live up to the hype,
live up to
basically.
your reputation."
Yeah.
And well, in another scene, she's talking with her sister Alex and she's correcting Alex's paper as she's sitting there talking to her, and Alex
Right.
gets pretty upset.
Other than these 3 scenes, there's really no other indication that she's super smart. She's
No.
never seen studying. She's never seen...
Well, I mean, to be fair, she's pretty busy.
Yeah, she's a little distracted.
So let's back up a smooch. The very first scene of the movie is we're just looking at a rural highway. There's no other cars but this one. So it's driving, and then it's driving, and all of a sudden,
And it's driving.
and then it's driving, and then all of a sudden,
It's a road movie. Just-
someone jumps out in front of the car. The car swerves to miss them, hits a tree.
That's a big gamble.
Yeah, the fuck it is.
Like, to time that right and jump out in front of a car, hoping
And
it
not
swerves.
die.
Yeah, hoping it swerves and doesn't kill your ass. That's a huge gamble.
Yeah.
Personally, I'm the kind of guy who will run over a squirrel if it runs out in front of me. And I'm not sure if I've ever translated that to a person.
I need to tell a story really fast.
Okay, go ahead.
When Rob and I first started dating, he was driving me home late one night through these windy back roads between my house and his.
I had my mother's van.
Yes. And there were,
We were probably like 16, 17.
I think you had just turned 18 and I was 17 still. We're like 6 months apart.
Yeah.
It's not a big deal. So, it's like you're robbing the cradle or anything. Rob's mom's van had this like very bright orange display with like all the CD information or whatever. So we're driving. windy roads, middle of the night, probably like midnight or something. Probably driving too fast because you're trying to get me home before my curfew or something like that. Out of nowhere comes this little possum. And it's crossing the road. And Rob just hits it. Just hit the possum. And then started laughing like the fucking Joker.
Well,
Just cackling.
so I intended to put the possum underneath the car, like put the wheels on either side of it so it could survive. But the possum was running at a pace that I didn't calculate correctly for. So it felt like, to Ashley, I had swerved into the possum. And so in that moment, I figured I'd just play it up, and I start laughing.
Because that's the best thing to do. Is just laugh like a maniac
So I'm-
with all this orange
yeah.
light glowing on your face. And I looked at you, and I was like, oh my God. And then
I'm
we
gonna
got
marry
married.
you.
And then we got married.
And one day I'll birth your children.
You're a fucking psycho. That was terrifying.
That was
Anyways.
a great story. It did well for me.
Yeah, I mean, you got me, so.
So it goes
Congratulations.
from that scene where you see this person who jumped out in front of the car goes up to the car door. And there's a little bit like eerie music going on in the background.
Not anything major.
And then we cut to a scene of Justine at a cafe on a roadside with her parents. And she, I guess every cafe along a roadside in France is like a buffet style.
It was like a Luby's.
Yeah,
Like
where
a cafeteria.
She's going along the line ordering her food, and they ask what kind of protein she wants, and she says, "Oh, I'm a vegetarian."
No,
I don't want any."
she like glops mashed potatoes on her plate, and then the lunch lady says no protein, and she says, "Oh no meat, please." And leading back to my original statement, where vegetarians cannot go 5 seconds without, you could just say, "Oh no, thank you." That's all you have to do. You don't have to be like, "Oh no meat, please." Just no, thank you. That's it. Or maybe you'll have some peanut butter. That's protein. Anyways, I digress.
So she goes back to the table, and they discover that there is in fact meat in her mashed potatoes.
Was that it? It looked like a pit.
It was like a meatball.
Ball?
Yeah, it was like a meatball.
Bruh.
So the mom gets up and she goes over and starts yelling at
Yeah, she starts screaming at the lunch lady, and she's like,
And-
"What if you had been allergic?"
the very beaten down dad. Looks like he's like, "Oh, it was terrible."
Sorry, guys.
So then they're in the car heading to school. They drop her off at the college. They talk about like the sister meeting them there, but she didn't answer, so she's not there. And so they just drop her off in the goddamn parking lot with her luggage.
No one else is around.
They're not even close to the school. Like, you can't even see the school from the shot.
They're not gonna like walk her in. Nothing. They just drop her the fuck off.
And they're alumni, so that means like this is their old stomping ground. Why wouldn't you be like, I want to go see everything again? Oh, look, there's the old tree where we used to make out. Oh,
I
that
don't
over
know.
there.
We get the feeling later on that maybe they didn't have such a good time when
That's
they were
where I got a
there.
wedgie on a slide.
What? A wedgie on a slide?
Yeah, that happens in college, doesn't it?
No, it doesn't.
Well, in this movie it could, because this college looks terrible.
There's a lot of hazing involved.
Um,
I went to art school. Zero hazing.
Right. This is art school. This is veterinarian school.
Right.
They're hardcore.
Very. They have a song where they talk about fucking you in your sleep.
Yeah.
That's terrifying.
So she gets introduced to her roommate, who is not a female.
Well, she goes in, like, we don't really see anything get set up or anything like that. It's just, it cuts to nighttime, and she's asleep. And there's this loud music, and this dude bursts in, and he says, "What's that music?" And she says, "Who are you?" And he says, "I'm your roommate." And she says, "You're not a girl. I requested a girl." And he says, "Well, they give you a fag instead." And he says, "Come on, let's go." And so he takes her out into the hall, where all the other first years are being pulled out into the hall by people in masks.
They don't make it out of the room. Like, the guys
Oh,
running...
that's right. You're right.
Yeah, so people run into the room wearing masks, and they start tossing their shit around and, like, pushing them against the wall.
Which happened to us.
Happened to us?
Yeah, we were in high school band, in marching band, and they do this freshman initiation. It depends on who your senior was.
Right. I mean, I do remember this. So, my mother was in on it.
Yeah. Everybody's mom was in on it.
We'll never do that. Like, they'll call to be like, "Hey, we're gonna come haze your kid," and I'll be like, "Shut the fuck up."
I don't think they do hazing anymore.
Right. I'm in the living room. I'm just wearing, like, boxer shorts. That's it. And she's like, you should probably put on clothes. Fine. So I put on a shirt, and I'm pulling up my pants, and 2 guys rush in. And I think I knew one of them. And they rush in, they're like, hey, we're hazing you, come get in the car. I was like, God damn it, Mom. She was like, oh, this is so much fun.
Mine was in the morning. It was super, super early in the morning. It was like the first week. No, it had to have been further in. Maybe like the second or third week of summer sessions or whatever. We kind of did like 2-a-days in the summer where we learned our marching shit. I was a 14-year-old girl. I was in a tank top and boxer shorts. I was asleep, and like bursting into my room come 2 fucking full-grown men. It was, I won't say their names, but 2 like full-grown, like 17, 18-year-old men come into my room, and they're like, come with us. And there was like 3 other terrified looking girls with them. And I was like, fuck, what's happening?
This is where my bunghole gets taken. This is how this is ending.
It's like, what the fuck is going on? I had no idea that this was going to happen. Both of my parents were in on this. My dad played high school and college football, so he's like a big, like...
I thought you were just going to say your dad played high school. He played high school, and then he played some college.
No, he played, high school and college sports, so he's like, oh, hazing is cool. So they picked us up.
You guys want my bong? Just throw it in there.
One of them literally picked me up, like, and put me over his shoulder, and they took us all out to the car, shoved us all in the back seat. There were too many people. There were not enough seatbelts. So they took us to fucking H-E-B, and they made us buy adult diapers and, like, 2 or 3 other things. And we were all in our pajamas still. And some of us were in, like, various states of dress. So, at some point, they were like, if you get up on the counter and dance, then we won't make you do the next thing that we're going to do. None of us would do that, because that's mortifying. So then all of the seniors brought all of their freshmen to the high school band field and let us all out, and we all had to put on adult diapers and do these disgusting fucking relay races. They made us play suck and blow at one point. That was gross. And I remember we were all just done with it, and so we just took off our diapers at the end of the band field and threw them down, and some poor girl started her period in her diaper. And so then the senior guys went on a mission to find out which of us it was for like the rest of the day. So we still had to do our entire day of the shit we were supposed to do. And also we had freshman orientation that day. Mm-hmm. So we had to go to freshman orientation in our fucking pajamas.
So we're in the van and they're driving us around. This is after they had like quasi drugged me out of the house. We stopped for donuts. We got to the band field. They're like, hey, you guys want to do this? We're like, nah. We don't want to do that. And so that was it.
That sounds way better than what they made us do.
Happened.
That sounds way better than what they made
so anyway,
us do. That shit was disgusting.
So in this movie, they run in and they like shove them out of the room. They're tossing their shit out the window, their mattresses out the window, all that stuff. And there's like women in various degrees of undress. There's even like, did you see the one girl who's like nude? Like they had just come in the middle of the night and drug them out.
Sure.
Yeah, there was one that was naked.
Okay.
And so then they force them into a line.
Well, it's France. They don't wear clothes.
They force them into a line. They have them crawl through, I guess, the basement of the school.
Yeah, something.
And they bring them into a giant party. Inside the party...
But they kind of terrorize them before they get in there.
Yeah.
They make them feel like something bad's going to happen.
But the crazy thing is, like, and I was thinking about this today, the movie is not, like, scary on the outside. People are not scary in this movie.
Right.
She's never afraid of anybody.
Right.
She just lives that life. The place where the suspense of this movie comes from is not anything external. It's internal.
Right.
And it's not really her. She's not experiencing the the horror we're experiencing, what she's going through, where she's not terrified of it. And that's what is scary. Like, the only reason it's scary is because we think she should be afraid of what she's doing.
Right.
But
And
she
she's
doesn't.
not.
She's just like, I think I'll do this. And you're like, no, don't do that.
There's hair in your mouth.
But yeah, so the movie, the way it portrays, the way it shows this hazing ritual, the way it portrays all that is not to try to scare you. It doesn't even build suspense around it. It just shows it to you.
Right.
It's more like here it is. So they end up at this party. She finds her sister, Alexia.
Or Alex. They just call her
Or just
Alex.
Alex. And you find out that they have this
Alex
weird
must be
dynamic.
Alex must have be a very popular name in France.
Yeah, because
in High Tension,
yeah.
the girl's name is Alex.
Alex, yeah. So they have this weird dynamic where they seem to love each other, but they also can't stand each other.
It seems like a typical like sister relationship where it's like, you know, the younger one is the favorite and the older one kind of gets dumped on a little bit, but she still loves her, but she still finds her obnoxious.
So then they're in, they party all night long, and they're finally in school the next day, and they're going through their normal like veterinarian stuff, and it'll cut back and forth between schoolwork and hazing, apparently for the first week of school.
They get covered in blood at one point.
Yeah, and so yeah, they get covered in blood, and then they force them to eat
A rabbit's liver.
just various bits of a rabbit.
No, it was rabbit's liver.
So it was in this jar, and they have each one eat it, and she's like, "Oh, I'm a vegetarian. I can't do that because I'm a vegetarian."
Well, and she says, just ask my sister.
Yeah.
Our whole family's vegetarian. And he says, who's your sister? And she says, Alex. And he was like, oh, no shit. And so he calls Alex over there. And he says, is she a vegetarian? And she's like, no. Why do you say that? And her sister forces her to eat
Yeah.
the rabbit's liver.
Well, she eats some of it, and then she like forces her to do it. She's like, you don't want that life. Don't be outcast.
Don't be a puss.
Which, by the way, she's pretty much an outcast anyway. It didn't change.
I don't think it would have made her. I think it would have been a lot better had she not.
Right.
To be completely honest.
Just based on the hazing alone, just say no. Just fucking no. Like,
I mean, but I think that kind of makes you a bit of a poon too if you just say no.
I'm down with that. I'll be a poon.
I mean, I guess, but then you also miss out on like the bonds and shit. I don't know.
But she finds out that her parents have been through this too, because she shows her like Alex shows her the photos of like her parents, and they're covered in blood, and they've been eating this shit too, and so I guess she feels like bonded, and she's like, okay, it's okay. The next night she has like horrible rash.
Yeah, she wakes up and she's got this like 3rd-degree burn looking rash all over her body.
I really liked the camera work underneath the covers, like the way that she did the camera from like POV in the covers, and like watching her struggle and
Like toss and turn and
Yeah.
itch and shit.
I liked that angle.
I have to say though, this girl is in vet school.
Mm.
She's supposed to be pretty fucking smart. She is itching a rash. Like hard. You
Yeah.
are never supposed to itch a rash.
I don't know. You got the idea that she didn't have a choice. Like
You
was,
do. Don't itch
compulsion.
a rash. Put
So-
some oven mitts on, put your hands in your pockets.
So she goes to see the nurse, and the nurse is like picking pieces of this scab off of her.
Oh, I almost died.
So we'll call this gross scene number 1. She talks to her. She's like, "Oh, you're in, Haze Week or whatever they call it," and
I think it's rush week.
whatever. And she's like, just keep your head down, get through it.
Tells her not to drink any alcohol and says that she probably has food poisoning and she's got a rash related to food poisoning. Gives her this cream.
But Justine is having like these meat thoughts because she's in line at their buffet school. It's a school lunch, which is buffet style. But she's like, she pockets some meat. She doesn't want to be seen as like a meat eater now, but she's definitely not a vegetarian anymore. She pockets some meat. The lady at the counter catches her, forces her to pay for it, so she throws it away.
She eats raw chicken out of the refrigerator in their room.
She goes after all of their meat in the room.
Her roommate is kind of concerned, but in like an I'm gonna let you do your thing, but like
Yeah.
that's pretty fucking weird kind of thing.
He also is
seems
really,
like a nice.
he's a
fucking
nice
guy.
dude, but he's also a horn dog, and he's having sex in almost every single scene with a dude.
He's a fucking like 20-year-old guy.
Well, there's this part where she finds her mattress downstairs, and so she has to drag it up the stairs, and she drags it all the way to her room, and she's knocking on the door asking him to help, and she opens the door, and he's in there getting a blowjob. So he's like,
Listen,
and so instead of like acknowledging her presence, he looks at her and he shuts the door in her face.
what else would you do? I mean,
But
great.
later on in the movie, he like hides the fact that he's masturbating. So like it was.
Well, I think because at first he saw her as an asexual relation because
as a vegetarian.
he's gay
Mm.
and she's a girl. So like he doesn't find her like sexually appealing at all, and he just assumes that she's going to not see him in that light too because he's gay. And we find out later that he's apparently recently come out of the closet. And so he's living his life. Leave him alone. Just getting a blowjob. If you could get a blowjob every day, you would get a blowjob every day.
So she's getting berated by her teacher. He caught Adrian, her roommate, cheating off her.
On a test.
So this is one of the 3 scenes where he's like, you're super smart and you're actually making people in the class not want to compete with you, which means that we don't get as many good doctors. So I don't like it when people like you come through my class, and I'd like to like blame this on you.
So the whole time she's like chewing on her hair
Yeah.
while he's kind of berating her.
Did it look like she was swallowing a whole heap of a lot?
No, it just looked like she was chewing on her hair,
Yeah,
which
just
you
the
shouldn't
end.
do anyways because that's so gross. Like, don't put your hair in your mouth.
Yeah, when the professor's doing that, if I was a professor, I'm sitting in his seat, and I'm yelling at this girl, right? And I'm watching her chew on her hair. You're gonna hear me gag like visibly a couple
Like 9 times.
Okay, well, you gotta stop that. I'm gonna lose my lunch right here on the floor.
When I was a little kid, I used to like to chew on my fingernails and chew on my hair. And I don't know what my mom did to make me stop. But now,
Taser gun.
Probably. If I see anyone else doing it, I get like this ick in the pit of my stomach that's just like, fucking stop. You can't do that.
I've never seen you do that.
What?
I've seen you put it on the wall. I've never seen you do it.
Right, because my mom tasered me or whatever. And so I don't fucking do
I
it.
like this story.
Because it's gross.
So anyway, so the next scene is her in the bathroom vomiting up tons and tons of hair,
Like, metric ton of hair.
which we'll call gross scene number 2.
Oh, fuck me, man. I was done at this point. I think I put my hand on your shoulder and I was like, I can't.
It wasn't this scene.
Oh, no, you're right. You're right. But this was really gross. I covered my eyes at one point. I was like, I can't take it. I can't take
Again,
it.
it didn't bother me. I was
It's
just
too
like,
much.
I was just like, yeah, it's what a drain feels like.
She was pulling it out of her throat. And I'm just, like, my mouth gets this very specific feeling whenever I think about that kind of stuff. And, like, I just remember all the times that I've ever had hair in my food and you've had to pull a hair out of your mouth. Oh, my fucking God. It's so disgusting. Ugh.
So, we get to the aberrant behavior scene.
Okay. So she goes to visit her sister. Her sister takes her up onto the roof of this building. They're drinking, they're talking, they're just having a general good time.
Yes.
Alex shows Justine that she can pee standing up.
This is what I wrote down as, is this the aberrant behavior? Is it just watching women pee that the censors were like, what are they doing? Oh my God.
First of all, I have been trying to do that ever since in the shower. I can't replicate. I don't know that it's possible.
Are you saying they faked it?
I don't know. I don't know what happened. But apparently, according to this film, according to Alex, if you stand with your knees together and you jut your hips
Yeah, she
out.
drops trowel. She's facing away from the camera, so you just get a butt shot.
Right.
She drops trowel and she like juts out her hips.
You put your knees together and
then
you
she
jut out your hips.
She forces the pee out in a stream
And it
like she's got a
goes
dick.
out straight. That would be fucking revolutionary.
In my line of work, we accomplish this with what's called a weenus.
A weenus?
It's a women's penis. It's a little tool that you carry around.
Is it like a funnel?
That's exactly what it is. It's a funnel. You just slap it on and you can pee out.
Is it really called a weenus?
It's called a weenus.
Because I remember we peed for your sister and her husband for a drug test one time.
That
And they
sounded
had a-
really weird up until you said for a drug test. As if this is like a initiation test that we do.
We gave them clean urine,
Yes.
and they had a fake penis.
I believe the statute of limitations on this kind of thing is over.
Well, I mean,
Quite a bit.
Jesus Christ.
We provided urine at some point for people who
May or may not be related
may or
to you.
may not have used it in a drug test. Maybe
But
they
they-
drank it. I don't know.
But they had a fake penis, and they put it in there, and that's how they did it.
Yes. So anyway, so that's what I believe is they're marked as aberrant behavior.
Just the peeing?
Because I can see like an old woman clutching her pearls and being like, "What are those ladies doing? That is not current behavior. That's not appropriate behavior."
Well, here at Scaredy Cat, we
this
like
is aberrant behavior.
here at Scaredy.
Write that down.
Here at Scaredy Cat, we like to test some shit, and as far as I can tell, it's not possible. But I will keep trying.
We ran an independent test on this, and
I will keep trying.
so
If you can replicate, please let us know. No pictures.
So then, as they're finishing up their on the roof activities, they end up in a room,
Well, Justine asks if she can stay over. She says her tummy hurts.
and so she's in the room, and her sister notices that her eyebrows are uneven, I guess. So she plucks a few eyes. She plucks a few hairs. This leads to a conversation about Brazilian waxing.
Well, first, before Alex is by herself in the bathroom brushing her teeth first, and she opens her sister's medicine cabinet and sees the same cream that the doctor had given her for her rash in her sister's medicine cabinet.
I missed that part.
She was like, that's interesting. And
I
she
think I
puts
was
it,
busy writing down, is this the aberrant behavior?
probably. She puts it back really quick, and you're like, that's interesting. I wonder if she got a similar rash from the rabbit liver or whatever. So then her sister comes in, they're brushing their teeth together, which is kind of sweet. It's like, this is nice. Like, they're sisters, they're brushing their teeth together, blah, blah, blah. I don't have a relationship with my siblings, so it's kind of like, that's adorable. Like, when I see people, like, liking their siblings, it's really nice. So then the eyebrow thing happens, and then Alex lifts up Justine's arm, and she's got hairy pits, and she's like, oh my gosh, by the time I was your age, I was giving myself Brazilians. And Justine says, what's a Brazilian? And the next thing you know, Justine is laid out, spread eagle on the bed, and Alex is waxing her vaginal region.
Yes. Oh, by the way, so this movie was written, produced, and directed by Julia Ducournau, a female.
Yeah.
So it kind of explains a kind of feminist streak that runs through this whole film. If you think about it, like, she's completely in control of her sexuality. No men ever threaten her sexuality. She never finds men to be a threat, or she finds herself kowtowing to men. Like, when she wants sex, she just goes after it.
Right. There was a lot of nudity in this film, but none of it was sexual. None of it was. It was just matter of fact. It was just like, these are parts of your body.
I mean, they did have some sex in it.
It was just sex. Like it just was. Like, it wasn't glamorized.
Right, yeah.
It just was what it was. And I think that when women are able to write things and women are able to show, like, their experiences, like what happened with the sisters on the roof when they were peeing, there was nothing even remotely sexual about any of that nudity. And had someone else been in charge of it, it could have been very different. But that's also why, like, representation matters.
Right. So she's getting her Brazilian wax on.
Wax
off. And then one of the strips gets stuck.
Which, I mean, congratulations to her for living through that. Because that is one of the single most horrifyingly painful experiences any woman will go through. It fucking is unbearable.
And from here on be the spoilers of this film. So, up until this point, if you've been interested in seeing this film, you don't want to know what happens or what leads to that happen, Here's a place to stop, watch, and then come back.
We'll give you 5 seconds. 1, 2.
While we're waiting, we'll tell a
3.
knock-knock joke. Ashley, do you have any knock-knock jokes?
Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Arthur.
Arthur who?
Arthur forgot.
And now we're in the spoilers. So the sister is trying to get the strip off, and she brings in a pair of scissors. Very sharp-looking scissors.
I mean, they just look like
They
scissors.
were huge.
I mean, she probably cuts her own hair.
You think those are hair scissors?
I mean, you could use them for anything. They're those big-ass, like, metal,
Yeah.
no fucking around scissors.
Right. I'm going to cut the entire sheet in one snip.
Yeah. I mean, but she's a vet. You know, like, they cut shit all the time.
Okay. I don't know if it's happened yet. No, it has. So it's already happened. But they intercut all these scenes with scenes of them, like, working on animals. You see them dope a horse, put it on a sling, and, like, carry it out.
We watched Alex pull poop out of a cow's butt
Yes. So that was going to get to. So there's a scene where she has her arm, like,
in a cow.
in a cow, digging around, and then pulls out this is how they, like, introduce before they go on the roof.
Right.
So all these little vet scenes, and at one point they dissect a dog, and all these are cut. So I wouldn't say those are really the gross scenes, except you know,
They also
being a
just-
vet is gross.
They also
right?
just seem very matter of fact.
yeah, being a vet is gross.
I mean, and, see, like, that kind of shit doesn't bother me at all. Like, it's fine. Hair, no thank you.
So anyway, so she got these scissors.
So she's got the scissors. The strip gets stuck on Justine's leg.
Vagina.
And you can't really tell why. Like, there's no reason it gets stuck. Like, it's just real stuck. And so Alex brings out these scissors and she's going to cut it off. And she tells Justine to be still. Justine is like, no, I don't want you to do that. Don't cut me. And she's like, I'm not going to cut you. Just be still.
She says, you're going to circumcise me.
And she's like, I won't, you dummy. You're fine. And then she kicked her sister.
She has a response. She kicks, and she's like, stay away from my vagina.
She says, it's my pussy. Leave it alone.
Yeah.
And then the sister looks really shocked, and her hand comes up from behind the bed, and we notice her middle finger is missing at the second knuckle.
Then she passes out.
Yes.
So this
fucking, yes. Jesus H.
So, she does the right thing. Justine calls 911.
Yes.
She finds the finger, and she's looking for ice.
Yeah. She kind of...
Also,
so
they
Alex
have
has a dog that
named-
stays with her all the time.
Named Quietly.
Sure. Yes. Is that his name?
Quietly.
Okay. So, the dog sort of sniffs around the finger. Justine shoos the dog off. She's like, no, not yours. And she picks it up, and she's looking for ice because you got to put the finger in ice. So it doesn't, but that's not actually what you should do.
No, you should put the finger inside of a bag.
Yes. And you should wrap it with something, right? So it doesn't get frostbite. And then you
Then
put the
put
bag,
the bag
in
in the
ice.
ice, yeah.
You don't put the finger directly on ice because you'll get frostbite and all the nerves will die.
Yes.
So, we learned this because when we lived in Turkey, our son cut off the tip of his thumb. But before that, a neighbor's child had slammed his thumb in the front door, which we had these big metal doors with these big metal, very unforgiving door jambs. And it cut the kid's entire thumb off.
Yeah.
And I kind of helped her, with the aftermath or whatever. And then we were talking and we realized we wouldn't know what to do if someone cut off their thumb. So we looked it up and that's what you do.
Right.
You don't put it directly on ice. So anyway, so she picks up the thumb. She's walking around with
middle
it.
finger.
That middle finger. She's walking around with it. She can't find any ice. She sits down. She looks a little exasperated. You can see Alex kind of over her shoulder, still very unconscious on the floor. And she like starts looking at it, and then she fucking licks it.
Yep. This is the moment where you grab my arm.
Oh my god.
You are bracing for impact.
Oh.
She gives a little lick. And
then
she
she
gives
gives
a
a
little
little nibble.
taste. And then she
Oh
puts it in her mouth,
God.
and she's taking a nice little...
Like, it's
You
like,
can see her, like, squeezing the finger.
it was like watching my dad eat chicken wings, You know, like my dad eats like the marrow and shit, which is fine. A lot of people do that. But it was a very similar like, experience where I was just like, oh my God, what's happening?
Then she's like chewing on the side of the finger.
Oh, fuck me. I was screaming at this point.
In the background, you can see just
Alex
starts to stir.
Oh my God. And I'm just yelling at the movie, stop eating the finger. It was just like, stop eating the finger. This is too much. This is too much. Stop it.
So, Alex notices that she's, chewing off her finger. And she starts crying. But that's where the scene ends. And then the next scene is them in the hospital.
Mom and Dad are there.
Mom and Dad are there. They're back.
There's an old man sitting across from them. And he wiggles his false teeth at Justine, and it's really gross, and she jumps, and then he cackles for a long time.
So my grandpa used to go around doing this too.
Oh, really?
It's where you would like play with your dentures and make people really uncomfortable.
Ugh.
Yeah, it happens.
My great-grandpa used to pull his out, and then he'd say, you can't pull yours out? And he'd watch little kids pull on their teeth. He was a weird old man.
So the dad, Alex comes out from there, and she says that quietly had, eaten
her finger. They blame the dog.
Yeah. And the mom is like, oh, you shouldn't have been doing this, you shouldn't have been doing that. And then she's like, we need to put the dog down or whatever.
The dad says they have to put the dog down because now he's tasted human blood. And if he liked the taste of it, he could attack someone.
So Justine gets upset, and she yells at her mom. And then her dad turns on her. It's like, you can't yell at your mother like that. And so she storms off.
It's nice to know that French people have the same shitty kids that we do.
So she storms off. She's outside. And then her dad is outside as well. And he's smoking a cigarette.
Everybody smoked in this movie.
And
the
so
doctor smoked.
The daughter comes up to him, and she's like, would you like a drag? In a very French way.
No, he said, do you smoke?
Do you smoke? In a very French way.
I mean, in French.
In a French way. Haha. He hands her the cigarette. And she's smoking, which the dad, he strikes me as a male model who just couldn't give two shits, just wants to get back to his career. That's what he looked like to me.
I don't know. He looked concerned.
Justine is then pushing Alex through the parking lot in her wheelchair that they gave her. And Alex gets up, and she's like, we have to talk, and she walks off. They go and they get behind a field, or they hide behind the road. Next to the road.
They get in like a ditch on the side of the road.
In a ditch on the side of the road, and
They crouch down.
She's like, what do you want to talk about? And she's like, oh,
Alex is like, just listen, just shut up and do what I tell you to do. Justine's like, you sound just like Mom. And she's like, fucking shut up and just sit here and do what I tell you to do. And so then Justine is just like bitching at her, and then this car starts coming, and all of a sudden, Alex jumps out of the ditch in front of the fucking car. The car swerves to miss her and hits a tree.
Is this our opening scene? Because it doesn't happen again. Because I didn't think it was the same car.
It wasn't.
But this is the only time we see this happen.
I think that was just like...
I think they're trying to say, like, this is after everything has happened.
I think this is like... This happens all the time. I think Alex does this a lot. Because remember...
So you think that was like... you think it was real time?
Yeah.
So you think that's why Alex wasn't there? Because she was busy eating the person. That's why she wouldn't answer her phone.
Right.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Wow. I thought this was like I thought this was...
Like a going back and looking at it?
I thought this was... Because I'd probably say 5 of the films we've done so far do this. Where they start off with the end, and they come back to it in the middle of the film.
I mean, think about it, because in the first scene, there was one person that gets up out of the middle of the road and walks over to the car. In this scene, Alex throws herself in front of the car, and then Justine immediately runs over to her, and then helps her up, and then walks over to the car. We never saw a second person in the first time.
Right.
So this has to be a separate event. So I think that happened
Yeah, that makes
first,
a lot of sense.
and then this happened now.
But the majority of films we've done do this, where they show you a scene, and they come back to it at some point in the film, and they're like, here's this.
I don't think that's what's happening here.
It happened in the very first film we did. It happened in Don't Breathe. And it's happened in probably 3 or 4 other films. I
Yeah.
can't think of it offhand. But yeah, the scene where he's dragging her through the through the road,
Right.
right at the beginning.
So, Alex jumps out in front of the car. Justine runs out and she's like, "What the fuck are you doing?" And then she gets up to go check on the people that are in the car. They're badly injured. They're both unconscious. And then Alex gets up and walks over, and she opens the passenger car door,
Guy's got some brain damage.
and she starts eating his head.
His brains.
And she says he won't make it. And she looks up at she looks up at Justine, and she's got blood all over her face. She's obviously eating the dude.
Yeah, but Justine's not ready for this level
I don't
yet.
know though, because she had blood on her shirt walking home.
True, but I think she storms off.
I think she may have partaken maybe a smooch.
Anyway, so she's not really talking to Alex that much.
So she walks off, and she ends up walking all the way home down a highway.
Well, she's walking along the highway, and she just like rips off her shirt. Which
Well,
again, this
she-
goes in this whole feminist like vibe of this movie. Like she's just walking along the highway, she just rips off her shirt, and she's walking down in a bra.
Well, she looks down at her shirt. There's blood on it, and so she rips it off, and she walks. She just keeps walking.
Which I guarantee is a great way to get a ride,
Not the best kind of ride, I imagine.
but a ride nonetheless. It might have an ass grass or a gas sticker on the back, but you're gonna get a ride.
I don't know if they do that in France. That might be a uniquely American thing.
Maybe.
Anywho.
The next time we see Alex is at a party where Justine is. Oh no. Okay, so Justine now
no, wait.
has
go ahead.
decided she's full on gonna like stalk people.
Well, she has decided that she's really interested in Adrian in a sexual way.
Yes.
She's watching him play soccer. He's shirtless. I mean, he's an attractive looking guy.
Yeah, she's doing everything but licking your lips.
I mean, there's lots of like nipple close-ups of Adrian. We see a lot of his abs. Like, they're laying it on thick that like this man is the object of her
He
desire.
is the bee's knees.
Yes. And while she's watching him, she gets a nosebleed.
Yes. That's how intently she was staring.
Right.
So she starts learning how to be sexy.
Right. As you do.
This is the Lord music video that comes in.
This is the most endearing part of the whole movie, I think.
in front of a mirror.
Because this girl is she's kind of like a skinny, nerdy girl, you know, like she's never really cared too much about her appearance, it seems, and like she's just, you know, she's doing her thing. So she borrows a cocktail dress from her sister, like a short dress, and she puts lipstick on, and she's listening to this song that's like very sexually explicit, and I'm really glad it was in French because, like we said before, our kids were camping in the backyard. So it was like, oh, I'm glad all of this is in French. And so she's dancing, like listening to the music.
Well, she's figuring out how to dance.
That looked like dancing to me.
She's getting the hip movement down, and she's working on her hips, and she's starting to get into it more, and she's looking in the mirror, she's putting on lipstick, she does close-ups where she's kissing the mirror,
She's
and she's
making
licking
out
the
with
mirror,
the mirror.
and she's like making googly eyes at the mirror, and I'm just seeing a Lord video.
And she like
the whole way through.
smears her lipstick all over her face on purpose. Like,
And that's how she presents herself going forward.
yes, that is what she's decided to do.
So she comes out to find her sister and Adrian playing video games.
Right, in his room.
And he decides he needs to leave,
He's going to a party
and she sits down and plays with her sister a little bit.
and tells her sister to back off. And
Yes.
and Alex says, "Well, I thought he was gay," and she says, "But still."
They end up at the party.
Well, she does. She goes to sleep, wakes up. There's loud music. She's itchy again. She gets up, she walks out, and as soon as she walks into this room, they throw paint on her.
Yes. Blue paint.
Blue paint.
And then
They grab a man in yellow paint.
The hazer grabs a hazy who's covered in yellow paint and throws them into a closet. Again,
I think it was a bathroom.
it was a closet.
Was
It was a closet because I kept thinking in my head, like, this is a nasty-ass dirty closet now. But he throws him in the closet
We're
and he
such
says,
parents. Like, the
he-
first thing you think of is like, oh my god, the cleanup.
well, we talked about this a little afterwards. He throws him in there and says, don't come out until you're green, because blue and yellow make green.
Right. Primary and tertiary colors. Mhm.
So, again, the feminist streak of this movie is this could be a very terrifying scene of, like, some, like, extreme male-dominant sexual, like, prowess, but it really isn't played that way. It's just played as, like, they start making out a little bit. They get handsy with each other. Like, she's as in charge of her sexuality as he is. And then she bites his lip. So I was saying whenever they got shoved in the room, I was like, this could be a very sexy thing back when I was a kid. Like, I could have seen this as like a very sexy move. Now I just see it as like a messy ass closet that somebody has to clean. But he comes running out. He's got like a chunk of his lip missing.
Do you think that this could also be a cultural difference? Like, as Americans, that's what we do with things. We make everything into like a sexual dominance. And maybe in Europe they handle sexuality very differently than we do.
I'm just coming from a place of knowing where horror films usually go with these things.
Right.
So, like, I've seen a lot of them. And they always play it up as, like, a dominance issue, or, like, the fear will come from this woman who's, you know, helpless in this situation.
Right.
And that's not where she took her film, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And considering that this film was released here, and it was shown in theaters here, it's an interesting voice that adds something different to the conversation than what you usually see.
Yep.
It's not male. It's not a woman as. It's not woman as victim. It's a strong and in control woman.
But I think it's also just the way that they make movies with men in them, where the men are just the characters. Like, the fact that they're men doesn't have anything to do with anything. Like, the fact that these women are women doesn't have to do with anything. It just is. Like, they just are. Like, when movies are made where men are the entire cast and the entire crew and the writers and the directors and everything else, the fact that they're men doesn't ever really even come up. It just is. They're just men. It's just the baseline.
You're saying these could have just as easily been brothers,
Right.
as sisters.
It could have gone either way.
Yeah.
The fact that they were women didn't really matter. And that's so fucking cool, like, that it doesn't have to be like an oh, these are women and so it's different because they're women. Like, they just are. And they wrote it in such a way that, like, their gender didn't matter.
Which brings me back to my original point about the aberrant behavior. Do you think that if it was men who are peeing on a roof, let's assume that's the scene that they thought of as aberrant behavior. Do you think that if it was a scene of men peeing on a roof, would it be labeled as aberrant behavior?
If that's what got at the aberrant behavior mark, then no, I don't think so at all. So anyways, so she bites this guy's lip in half. And Adrian is at the party. He sees her, and he looks concerned. So she leaves. She goes home, washes off all the paint. Adrian is in his room waiting for her whenever she comes out of the shower. He tells her to come here. She lays down on the bed with him. He kind of, like, you know, kind of hugs her like a friendly, like,
Well, yeah.
comfortable.
Yeah, like you've been around each other for a long time. And
Right, you're just
he's a
comfortable
dude
with
bro.
each other.
You walk in, you lay down, and they're talking, and she's like, and he was like, oh, is that how you, I'm just trying to figure you out, like, what gets you off and stuff. She's like, well, what does she say? Are you going to kiss me, or?
She says, are you going to kiss me? And he says, no.
And he goes, and what does it matter?
Right.
And she walks off.
Right.
So she leaves the room, he pulls out a laptop, and he starts masturbating to gay porn. And she comes back in, and she's like, it's bad. And he's like, oh, okay, so now we're doing this.
So then they start having sex.
Mm.
It kind of looks like maybe he didn't... I mean, he was into it at first, but then, like, she starts getting pretty wild.
Right.
And he's like, stop, I don't know, stop. And then she ends up on top, and she bites the fuck out of her own arm.
Well, yeah, because she starts, like, nibbling at him.
Yeah.
And he keeps telling her to stop. So she finds a happy medium where she just takes a chunk out of her own arm,
Right.
which makes for a very unsexy moment, I would imagine.
I
Like,
mean, and he kind of, like, I think she comes in that moment or whatever when she
Yeah.
bites herself.
Yeah.
And then he's kind of just like,
Okay.
all right. And he, like, he just seems like such a nice guy. Like, he's like petting her head. He's like, are you okay? Like, what can I do to help you? Kind of thing. I don't know. It would had to have been incredibly awkward. That's all I wrote down. Is just like, he's just a nice guy. This is just a very nice guy.
I was just saying, the first time that she bit him, that's where the sex would end.
Right.
Especially knowing that this chick took a guy's like
Lip off. Yeah.
I wrote down hashtag way too cute, and I knew it comes up in the movie, but I don't remember where.
Oh, Justine and so the next day, Justine and Adrian are sitting in class, and Adrian gets a text on his phone.
We have to go back for a second.
Okay.
After the Lord music video, when she's sitting with her sister asks, "How did I taste?"
Oh, and she said like curry.
She says, "You tasted like curry," which I laughed at pretty hard. Anyway, so then we go through sex. Now we're back to way too cute. Hashtag way too cute.
So, Justine and Adrian are sitting in class. Adrian gets a text on his phone. It's from Alex.
Telling her to pick up her phone.
Yeah.
Hashtag way too cute.
Oh, no. Telling Justine to pick up her phone.
Oh, okay.
Justine looks at her phone, and Alex had texted her to tell her that her parents had put down the dog that they said ate her finger. Yeah. And she hashtagged it way too cute, which I don't know why. But
because they're sick people.
Right, I guess.
It's obvious.
So, Justine gets really upset with Adrian about why...
Yeah, about taking her virginity.
No,
and then,
why her sister has his cell phone number.
Yes.
And he's like, fuck your sister. And she's like, fuck you. Like, what are you doing? You're not even going to talk to me now after you deflowered me and, like, all this other shit. And he's like, I'm gay. Like, I shouldn't have done that with you. I'm really sorry. Like, that shouldn't have happened. But, like, you have to leave me alone. Like, I am gay.
Right. He's like, I didn't come out. I didn't spend 20 years out.
Or 20 years in a closet to, like, go back to fucking women now. And he gets up and he storms out of class and, like, kicks the chair on his way out. I mean, this girl is already being ostracized. I mean, and for good reason. Like, she's biting people. She's, like, all this shit that you learn in preschool about, like, keeping your hands to yourself and not biting people. She is not doing those things.
She's kept at arm's distance, but nobody seems to care that she's biting all these people. Like, nobody... there's no repercussions.
Weird. They just think she's weird.
She doesn't face any repercussions when she eats the finger. She doesn't face any repercussions when she bites the guy's lip off. Like, there is nothing that will actually get her in trouble in this movie.
That's true.
Very strange. So, she's at another party.
Yes, she's acting generally really creepy. Just, like, looking at people. It's
completely drunk out of her mind. Like, she takes... So, she has a giant Solo cup that she asks him to fill up with vodka.
So she doesn't have to come back.
Right. And then she's just downing it.
Which is not a good plan.
Lots of alcohol.
And she doesn't drink.
And Alex is there.
Yes.
Alex leads her into a different part. Now, this is strange to me. They're at a veterinarian school.
Right.
But there's a morgue.
Like a people morgue.
Like, there's a dead person in a morgue. So she pulls out... So the final scene of that is she pulls out this tray and she calls Justine over there. And you see a flash of a body on a bed. On the gurney.
And then everything goes black.
And then we're to the next scene where she wakes up in bed.
Yeah.
She's happy. She wakes up in bed happy. She goes on. She's doodapping through her day. But she doesn't want to sit by Adrian because she's mad at him. He's not her favorite right now.
So he pulls her aside, takes her into the bathroom.
She goes up to sit by somebody else. And that person gives her the biggest stink face you've ever seen.
That's true.
And I was like, this lady has, like, natural stink face.
She was disgusted.
But it turns out there's a reason for it, because Adrian pulls her aside.
Pulls her into the bathroom.
Shows her a video on his phone, which I'm guessing he took.
I don't know. You got
It
the
didn't look like it was shared. It looked like it was...
No, I mean, you got the idea that it was shared because everybody knew. Like, everybody was kind of...
Of Alex taunting Justine, who wants to bite the hand of this dead person that's on the gurney, by pulling it back at the last second while she's trying to bite at it.
So she's saying...
And people are all gathered around laughing at her.
So she's saying fetch, and Justine, very drunk, is jumping up and trying to eat the guy's hand.
Yes.
In the video. Adrian is showing this to her. She is like, where were you? Why didn't you stop her? And she storms out. She hits Adrian, doesn't she? And she's like, leave me alone. So she goes and she finds her sister.
Now that I think about it, do you think this is Alex's revenge for quietly dying? Like, maybe the text message was really just a playoff of being really upset about it.
I don't think so.
Because she did say fetch. She says dogs things to her while she's drunk on the floor.
I didn't even think about that.
Maybe she was upset about quietly, but she was pretending not to be so that she could get back at her in this scene.
Yeah, it's possible.
She knew she was drunk. She didn't, up until this point, they've been eating people together.
Right.
And she decides to, torment her in this moment.
That's possible. I didn't even think about that.
Could have been revenge. Justine tracks her down outside.
She's in the middle of the courtyard. Tons of people
Jumps
around.
on her, and they have a bite fight.
They do. Alex takes a bite out of Justine's face.
Justine takes a bite out of her arm.
They just start biting each other.
They just they basically lock onto each other like Dobermans.
They're like dogs. I mean,
And-
just biting the fuck out of each other.
Which again, people are like, "What the fuck, man?"
Yeah,
but nobody does anything.
No, they're like, well, they're family.
Again, they don't get in trouble for this.
Family's family. There's no adults anywhere. No teachers, nothing. People are just like, well, they're sisters. Sisters do that.
We also missed during the party scene, the way we're introduced into the party is we see this couple.
Oh, yes. Ugh.
And it's a dude who opens his eyes wide as he can get it, and the girl licks his eyeball
What the fuck?
as the camera pushes through them into the rest of the room.
That's so unsanitary. What are you doing?
I have two questions.
Okay.
One, was this a stupid human trick that the guy could do? And he was like, hey, you know what I'm really into? People licking my eyeballs. Can you work that into your film? And two, how many takes did they have to do this?
Oh, fuck, man.
Because it really looked like in the one that we got, he was done with life. It didn't look like it was a sexual thing.
It did
to
not
him.
look like he was into it in
didn't look
any
like-
way.
It looked like this was take 27, and he was starting to get sandy, the tongue was maybe getting a little sandpapery.
Like cat tongue.
And it was just like...
Yuck.
So technically, this gets an honorary mention as a gross scene because for me, it's probably the
Please.
weirdest one.
Please don't let people lick your eyeballs.
Yes, it's not a good idea.
There's so
people.
much bacteria in your mouth.
I realize that the kids are into it these days.
Who's into this?
Everybody's doing it.
No
actually.
one is.
But you
No
don't
one is
have
doing
to.
this.
I want everybody to listen to me right now. You don't have to lick your partner's eyeball. There are other things to lick.
You don't have to do butt stuff, and you don't have to lick eyeballs.
Right. No matter what. I don't care if Jimmy says it's cool that you'll be looked down at
That
school.
Sandy licked his eyeball.
That, people be licking eyeballs up these days. You don't have to.
They're all lying. No one's doing it.
Say no to the eyeball licking.
Oh, it's so gross.
So they have their fight and then they're back together. They work it out.
Yeah, they kind of make up in a weird way. They sort of help each other clean up.
Or do they? Because she gets back together with Adrian.
Justine wakes up in the morning, and she's in Adrian's bed. He's asleep next to her, just all angelic and shit. I mean, this is honestly a pretty, pretty man. And she's like, man, I feel better. Like, her face looks like fuck. Like, she's got a
Right.
big old bite out of her face. It does not look good. And, but, Adrian's there. She kind of caresses his face a little bit. Then she kind of touches his chest. Then she moves down a little further, maybe getting a little rapey. And because he obviously does not want her to touch his dick.
What? No. He's
No.
in bed with her.
But
They've
friends,
obviously had sex.
no, I don't think so. That's not what I got from it.
I got it that they had made up and had sex.
I don't think so. I got that like they were friends and sometimes friends sleep in the same bed together.
They have opposite rooms.
Have you ever slept in a bed with someone that you did not have sex with?
No.
Never?
Never.
I'm sad
Of the
for you.
opposite sex.
I'm sad for you. So she's moving down a little further, and then she pulls her hand up. She looks a little shocked and is covered in blood. She throws the blanket off of him. A very substantial chunk of his thigh is missing.
It's like the prime cut of
We
his
see
thigh.
bone, we see cartilage,
Yeah.
we see muscle. There's a lot of shit going on here. And
She looks in the mirror and she thinks that she did it. Like, it's obvious.
well, because she's got blood all over her. So she looks at his back, and he has
A single hole.
a hole in his back. Then she looks on the floor.
And she finds her
There's like a walking stick
No, it's a
thing.
ski stick.
Yeah, a ski pole.
Ski pole.
And he's been stabbed in the back with this ski pole.
She wanders around the corner.
And there's Alex.
She's sitting on the floor with blood like staining all the way down from her mouth. She's not well. She's not a well person.
She's dazed. I mean, she's aware, or she's awake, but she's not lucid. So Justine gets her up.
Well, first she takes the pole and she puts it to her head. And you think
Oh,
this is the end for
I knew
Lex.
she wasn't going to, though.
But it's not. She puts it down. She decides, blood is thicker than blood of my boyfriend. So she brings her
Non-boyfriend.
up.
He doesn't want to be her boyfriend.
Of
He's
my
gay.
friend who is a boy.
Sure.
And she picks her up. And then she's in jail.
No, she
suffers a
She takes her
consequence.
to the shower.
Yeah, gets her in the shower, gets her all cleaned
She
up.
cleans her up. She wipes off her face. She washes her off. And then the next thing we know, Mom,
She's in
Dad,
jail.
and Justine are visiting Alex in jail.
In jail. So she suffers a consequence, but nobody else does.
Right.
Apparently, you have to actually kill somebody in France before they care that you
I mean, she's killed a lot of people.
bite people.
She's killed a lot of people.
So that brings us to the end of the movie, where they're sitting back at the same diner. I'm gonna assume it seemed like the same.
No,
diner.
it was their kitchen table.
Oh, okay, yeah. They're sitting at her kitchen table, and the dad.
Justine, Dad, and Mom.
The mom is telling Justine that she needs to finish her food, her vegetables, because she's not touching her vegetables because she's a fucking teenager or something. I don't know. She's a child. She
Kids
won't
are
eat her goddamn
shitty.
food. Her mom leaves and said you can't leave until you eat your food. The dad says, I thought it wasn't going to end like this. He tells her that he really thought that they could end differently. It wasn't Alex's fault. They just kind of always thought this would happen because her mom is like that too.
Yes. He talks about he met her at vet school, and she pretty much did the same thing to him that Justine did to Adrian,
Yes.
where she latched on to him and she took a chunk out of his lip, which Justine did not do to Adrian, but she did to the other kid.
Right.
And he unbuttons his shirt
The dad does.
to reveal a fuck ton of
Scratches,
fresh
scars,
and old
and
bite
old
marks.
bite marks.
I mean, it's a lot. And then he says, I'm sure you'll find a cure, honey."
Yeah.
And then it ends.
So we're left thinking that this entire family is cannibals, or maybe this is like some
I think
supernatural thing.
everyone but the dad. And I think that the reason they were so strict about being vegetarians was because eating meat is what spurned it.
Right. So question.
Yes.
If you know that eating meat is going to cause you to get it into like a cannibalist mood,
Mm-hmm.
and you're the parents, why the fuck do you send your kids to a school where hazing is part of it, and they make you eat meat?
Well, maybe they didn't know that that's what
No, they
happened.
went through the same damn thing. They have the picture where they're covered in blood eating the meat, and that's even what Alex is talking about.
I think this is another case of communication would solve all the problems had the parents told the girls at some point, hey, this is what's going on with us. If you do this thing, this bad shit will happen to you. Had they just said that at some point, this all could have been avoided. And it would have been fine.
Yeah, so you don't send your kids to school where hazing ritual includes eating meat. Maybe send them to a different school, maybe art school, where nobody's going to try to force them to eat rabbit. And then they never have to find out that they're cannibals. They don't end up eating people and going to jail.
Well, in art school, a lot of people are vegetarian anyways. Not in Texas, but I'm sure in other places.
Right in.
I'm sure in other places.
So that was the film. It didn't do incredibly well. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
From what I see of the theaters. Now, if I were to tell you that 30 people had to leave this screening of this film, would you think that was exaggeration?
I would say they were wieners.
Extremely. Like, maybe they thought they were going to watch Boss Baby or something.
Wieners.
This
was
film,
not that bad.
This was a medium.
It was gross.
Gross
but
film.
it was not walk out gross.
This was pace picante medium.
Like, you paid $30 to see this movie. Fucking stay. This was not bad. This was like Final Destination 4 bad. This was not terrible.
Let's go into our ratings.
Okay. This is the part of the podcast where we give our ratings-ish kind of things.
Is this film gory?
Yes.
Yeah, and we mark how many scenes do we count that were gross? 1, 2, 3, 4, probably about 5 gross scenes. in the
5,
film.
maybe 6 pretty gross scenes.
If you were to just chop out all the gross scenes, you'd be left with a very
I mean, a pretty substantial movie still.
yeah, but it wouldn't.
It wouldn't make sense.
It's true. You're like, I don't understand. Why is she so upset by all this? Like, why is she covered in blood now? I don't get it.
A lot of things would not make sense if you cut out all the gory parts.
Right.
But it's probably the same way in most movies.
I just thought about this. We'll talk about this in a second. Remind me to talk about the thing that just came into my head.
Okay.
Is this movie scary?
No?
A big nope. Again, the horror in this film comes from us watching her become who she really is.
Her descent into cannibalism.
It's not a scary film. She never feels fear. We never feel fear through her.
Mm-hmm.
She just realizes what she is, and she becomes what she is, and we're like, oh, gross, don't do that.
That's very much the reaction all the way through. Like, oh my god, no!
Is this film nightmare-inducing?
Not unless you've got a problem with hair. Because we took a break between when we watched this and when we recorded this bit of it. We slept, and then we ate breakfast. And this morning, while we were eating breakfast, you were attempting to talk to me about the hair scene, and I just can't. Not when I'm eating. I can't handle that.
And then finally, is this film worth watching?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's worth a watch.
It's very, very good.
Again, it's like a medium gory film or a medium gross film. You can totally sit down and handle it.
This is an excellent, like, afternoon.
And if you're a cannibal or a vegetarian, this is a good conversation starter.
Well, and I think takeaway from this film is meat is murder. B,
Vegetarians are murder.
no, B, you should not eat organ meat. Like, if you choose to eat meat, you should not eat organ meat because you're not a fucking ghoul. So don't eat organs. It's gross. It's unnecessary. We don't need to do that anymore. It's not good for you. Nothing good comes out of it. And you turn into a goddamn cannibal. Case in point, this movie. And you get a rash.
BT dubs.
Yes.
I'm so glad that somebody finally told the true story of being a vegetarian. That they finally put it on film.
What, not being able to find anything to eat most of the time?
The truth is out. All vegetarians, us included, are really just cannibals.
That's true.
Just
We're just
waiting to
keeping
get
it
out.
at bay. Are you mildly terrified for when we go home this summer to Texas about what the fuck we're going to eat on the road once we get through, like, Arkansas
all the
and
barbecue.
shit? What are we going to do? We're going to eat a lot of baked beans.
There's Taco Buenos. We'll be fine.
They do bean burritos, that's true.
Bean burritos.
So, something that we stopped doing for a little while, for no particular reason, was the Bechdel test.
Mm.
The Bechdel test is something that you use to measure whether or not a movie is like lady positive.
Right.
If it has more than 2 female characters that talk about something that has nothing to do with men, if it portrays women in a non like stereotypical damsel light. So, do you think that this movie passes the Bechdel test?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. Flying colors, hands
I mean,
fucking down.
For a good third of the film, it's really just a sister movie. Like,
Right.
it's her hanging out with her sister.
2 girls bonding over eating, folks.
Seeing if they can pee on roofs.
Yeah. And I mean, really, isn't that what it's all about? Trying to figure out if you can pee standing up.
So
If women could do that, it would change the world. It would change everything. Because honestly, we're always just looking for somewhere to pee. We also have to have babies. I mean, you don't have to. But we are the gender that has babies, which wrecks your fucking bladder. So then, you laugh too hard and you got to take a pee. Then you got to walk 20 miles to find a bathroom. It's a mess.
all right. So my thought that I told you to
Oh,
remind
yes,
me
yes,
about.
yes. Talk about the thing.
It seems like, and I can only think of one example, so this isn't a very strong theory, but it seems like every couple of years there's this outrage about a woman movie that comes along and it's like so gross. It's just ridiculous and everybody's like passing out and they're so disgusted by it and like it sells big overseas and the one that I'm thinking about was called Teeth. Do you remember?
I do remember this, yeah.
It was about a woman who develops teeth in her vagina. And it had the same kind of hype that this film had. Mm-hmm. It seems like every couple of years, people get really freaked out about the idea of ladies being gross, I guess.
I think it's more women being the aggressors.
Right.
And then also, like, any sort of film that portrays a woman's sexuality in a non-sexy way. Like, just something that happens. Something very matter-of-fact.
Do you think that it's a marketing ploy? Do you think that they know because this
I don't
formula
think so.
sells?
I don't think so. Because it doesn't sell. It doesn't sell, like, fucking Rob Zombie movies where he shows Cheryl Moon's tits the entire time. Like, those movies
Well, he
sell.
doesn't show them.
I mean...
but he accents them the whole time.
Right.
Accentuates them.
But, like, like, that sort of shit sells. And, like, that's another branch of feminism, right? Where, like, Cheryl Moon is a woman that has taken complete control over her body. And she's decided, like, I'm going to be tits out all the time. And, like, that's what I am. And Rob Zombie has given her a platform on which to do that. And in this recent movie that he did, one about the clowns.
21 or something like that.
Something like that. We watched it recently. Cheryl Moon's getting older. She's probably like in her 50s, late 50s,
Still
early
looks
60s.
fantastic.
Looks fucking banging. But like, she's an older woman, and we don't typically view older women
Yeah.
sexually anymore. And so the fact that she did that in a film is a really big deal.
That being said, she's probably only like in her 40s, maybe 50s.
I think she's in her late 50s. But I mean, she's led a rough life for a little bit. But like, she's older, and women age out of that like sexy phase at like in their late 30s. Like that's where that ends for the most part.
You have to become the greatest actress in the world so you
Right.
can play other parts.
Right. And then you get to play everybody's mom. You don't
Right.
get to be like the sexual interest anymore. And that's what Cheryl Moon was in that film. So I think there's 2 different branches or 2 different schools of thought as far as like women taking control of their sexuality and their bodies. There's women that there's movies that exploit women's sexuality and use it to sell film. And they brand it as, look at this woman taking, full control of her body. And then there's movies like this one that it's just matter of fact. It just is what it is. They treat women's sexuality the way that everyone else treats men's sexuality, to where it's not a big deal. Like, it's not even a part, it's not
Right.
even a main part. It just is what it is.
And it's never in question.
Right. It's not ever like, oh, is she a whore?
I mean-
it's like, no, she just is what she is.
And think about it. In this film, she's a virgin.
Right.
But does she ever seem insecure about the fact that
No.
she's a virgin? Does she ever seem insecure about having sex?
No, not at all.
No, it's just She's just out there.
It just is what it is. So
That being said, my counterpoint to you is that we know this film when it was just a small indie film made, shown at some festivals, but there's plenty of films just like this that we don't know, but this one rose to the level of like the marketing around this film worked because we know it. So even though it was shown in just a few theaters.
Well, think about the way that they marketed it. It wasn't marketed as, watch this young, in-control woman, like, just do her thing. It was marketed as, look at this totally disgusting, like,
30
absolutely
people passed out.
horrifyingly gruesome and gross, like, cannibal film. That's how it was marketed. But that's also how you would market a movie that starred men. That's how it would be. It wouldn't be like, look at this young, hot chick with her tits out and, like, watch her eat people.
Well, this is like a William Castle, like, esque way to sell a film.
Right.
You know, people passing out in the theaters.
Which I kind of fucking love.
People being shocked by the theater. Like,
I love it.
Dead bodies. You have to sign a waiver going in. Like, this is how you sell films.
I think that's great. I think that shit should come back. Because, like, nobody goes to the movies anymore. And when you do, now, I don't know how it is everywhere else, but here in Jersey, they've made theaters into your fucking living room. Like, you've got big-ass recliners, and people are not on their best behavior. When you go to a theater, you need to be fucking silent, and you need to turn off your goddamn phone. Whenever people are in these big armchairs, they feel like they're at their house. So they fart, and they turn over, and they wiggle, and they move, and they talk, and they chatter, and they have their phone out, and all sorts of shit. Fucking, you need a real theater seat where you have to sit up. You have to sit up for an hour and a half. Good God, how terrible must that be, where you are not fully comfortable for an hour and a half to watch someone else's fucking art? God forbid.
Any other thoughts about the movie?
It was icky, but it was definitely worth looking at.
It was 5 scenes gross.
Maybe 6. I'm not sure. I lost count. But, yeah, I mean, definitely, absolutely 100% watch it. It is totally worth it.
Yeah.
It's very, very good. We enjoyed it. We watched it on our laptop, which we've not watched a movie on our laptop since we were probably teenagers.
That's true. Thanks to Brandon Tuzio for our theme song.
Yes, the magnanimous Brandon Tuzio.
Hear more of his work on soundcloud.com/Brandon Tuzio, Tuzio.
He released an EP a couple of months ago, and I think he's going to release another one very soon.
If you like what we're doing, rate and review us on
iTunes or wherever else you find your delicious podcasts.
and tell us what movie you want us to do next on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook. All
At Scaredy Cat Pod.
until next week.
Thank you for listening. You're amazing. Please don't eat your friends.
Adios, muchachos.
Bye!